G.O.P. Lies about their record on Civil Rights Act of 1964. Final vote was June 1964. Votes, 73 to 27. 51 votes needed for passage.
The use by Republicans of this vote is a perfect illustration of the dictum that statistics don't lie, but liars use statistics. Have you ever wondered why they never refer you to the data upon which their claims are supposedly based? We will give you that data from the C-SPAN website because we are not out to misinform you. And we want you to see for yourself the truthfulness of our claims. The Republicans enhance claim that their party has a better record on race relations than the Democratic Party because, they say, 81% of Republican senators voted for the Civil Rights Bill, versus 69% of Democratic senators.
Anybody who knows anything about the political scene of those days, as opposed to the political scene today, knows that what was called the Democratic Party in those days had two diametrically opposed parts: the extremely conservative Dixiecrats of the former Confederate states, who were in the process of divorcing themselves from what we now know as the Democratic Party of modern times. It is those conservative Dixiecrats of the Deep South, and only those Democrats, who voted against all the civil rights legislation of the 1960s.
It is precisely because the bigotry of these Southern Christian conservatives did not fit with the newfound liberalism of the Democratic Party and the rest of the country that they first became the Dixiecrats and then not only joined the Republican Party, but actually came to dominate the Republican Party and to imbue it with its Southern Christian conservative stamp. When you look at the raw data yourself, what you find is that
of the Democrats who voted against that monumental civil rights bill, every last one was a Dixiecrat representing a former Confederate state, states that were so unhappy with the Democratic Party's embrace of civil rights for blacks at that stage of American history that they would soon replace all of their Democratic representatives who weren't racist enough to satisfy their intense bigotry, with conservative Republicans who were.
While there was not a single senator representing the states we now recognize as Democratic, that is outside of the former Confederate states, to vote against civil rights, there were 6 Republican senators outside of Dixie who opposed the Civil Rights Bill, led by Senator Barry Goldwater, the standard-bearer of the Republican Party that year, the party's choice not only to lead the party but the country, as President of the United States, and one of those who ran for Congress that year as a Goldwater Republican, and who campaigned against the Civil Rights Act, was George H.W. Bush.
90% of African Americans whose parents or grandparents were likely to have identified with the grand old Party of Lincoln prior to the 1960s now identify with the new Party of Lincoln, while vast numbers of Dixiecrat office holders and voters have gone the other way, running from the old Party of Jefferson Davis to the new Party of Jefferson Davis. Both groups are experts on the question of which party is favorable to civil rights and the one opposed to it, and they agree entirely on the answer.
The votes in favor of the 1964 Civil Rights Bill: Democratic yeas, 46 Clinton Anderson, Bob Bartlett, Birch Bay, Alan Bible, Daniel Brewster, Quentin Burdick, Howard Cannon, Frank Church, Joseph Clark, Thomas Dodd, Paul Douglas, James Edmondson, Claire Engel, Ernest Groening, Philip Hart, Vance Hartke, Carl Hayden, Hubert Humphrey.
Democrats continued. R. Daniel Inouye, Henry Jackson, Edward M. Kennedy, Frank Lausch, Edward Long, Warren Magnuson, Mike Mansfield, Eugene McCarthy, Gail McGee, George McGovern, Thomas McIntyre, Patrick McNamara, Lee Metcalf, Mike Monroney, Wayne Morse, Frank Moss, Edmund Muskie, Gaylord Nelson, Maureen E. Neuberger, John Pastor, Claiborne Pell, William Proxmire, Jennings Randolph, Abe Tribikoff, Stuart Symington, Harrison Williams, Ralph Yarborough, Stephen Young.
Not one Dixiecrat in favor. Let us remember that the former Dixiecrats are today's Republicans, and the former Republicans are today's Democrats. Republican yeas the votes: 26 George Aiken, Gordon Allott, Glenn Beall, Wallace Bennett, Caleb Boggs, Frank Carlson, Clifford Case, John S. Cooper, Carl Curtis, R. Nebraska Everett Dirksen, Peter Dominic, Hiram Fong, Roman Huska, Jacob Javits, Leonard Jordan, Kenneth Keating, Thomas Kuckel, Jack Miller, Thurston Morton, Carl Mundt, James Pearson, Winston Prouty, Leverett Saltonstall, Hugh Scott, Margaret Chase Smith, John Williams, Milton Young.
The only Democrats to vote against the 1964 Civil Rights Bill were Dixiecrats of the former Confederate states. But 6 Republicans from outside of Dixie joined the Dixiecrats in opposing equality for Black Americans.
Democratic nays: 1. Robert Byrd. Now let us remember that Dixiecrats are now Republicans. Dixiecrat nays: 20. Harry Byrd, James Eastland, Alan Ellender, Sam Irvin, William Fulbright, Albert Gower Sr., Lister Hill, Spessard Holland, Olin Johnston, Everett Jordan, Russell Long, John McClellan, Willis Robertson, Richard Russell, George Smathers, John Sparkman, John Stennis, Herman Talmadge, Strom Thurmond, Herbert Walters.
Republican nays: 6. Norris Cotton, Barry Goldwater, Burke Hickenlooper, Edwin Meckham, Melvard Simpson, John Tower. Can you name some all of the Democrat Dixiecrats in Congress who voted against the civil rights who then became elected Republican members?
Definition of the Dixiecrats: also called Dixiecon, a white, largely Southern, social conservative group opposed to social progress, civil rights for non-whites, and political equality. They were the old Dixiecrats who have switched to the Republican Party. They're now also known as Dixiecons. Characteristics of a Dixiecon include overt or thinly veiled white supremacy, in-your-face sexism, an outward show of patriotism by flag-waving while at the same time evading taxes and military service, religious fundamentalism, an active or passive allegiance with white supremacist hate groups, better known as domestic terrorist organizations. The
Dixiecons have this country held hostage to their small-minded, redneck views. They're trying to pass unconstitutional voting laws requiring photo ID. They claim it will reduce voter fraud, large minority turnout, but in fact, it's designed to keep poor people, especially the elderly, disabled, and minorites, from voting out the Dixiecon mafia. These would be the today's Tea Party, WHO, are also known as Republicans.
Well now, that's it. I hope this set the record straight on who the G.O.P are today. They are the old Dixiecrat/Tea Party, and now known Republican Party hiding under the guise Tea Party. But they have not changed their agendas. If you want more of these wingnuts, then vote for Mitt Romney. If you really want a change in government, stay with or cast your vote with Obama.